Best Radio. It's Tuesday evening and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I'm Saad in Southeast London. And with me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you and how has been your week?
One is fine, and fairly hectic week.
Fairly hectic, okay. So from my side, last week our topic was Festival of Womanhood. We were celebrating that festival. So in the Grail, we also know it as the Festival of the Pure Lily. So we were celebrating that last week. And also, just in case people are thinking that festival is only for women, that is not the case. The blessing is given to the women, but also to the men as well, but specifically for the women. I won't talk much more on that for today. I just wanted to say there have been some big natural disasters since last Tuesday's show, and I just thought I should mention that. The most late, let's say earlier in the week, it was an earthquake in Morocco, which I know has killed almost 3,000 people, and they say there are 5,000 people still missing, and quite a devastating earthquake there. And then just a few days ago, I think Sunday actually, there has been a storm over Libya, which has caused a lot of heavy flooding, and hit a big city of Derna in North Libya, and they say, and it caused bursting of dams, and flooding, and they say 1,500 are dead already, and there's 10,000 missing. So it's quite devastating there as well. So we send our thoughts to all the people affected. And a few days before that, last week in Hong Kong and South China, there was also a massive flooding and rainfall due to a typhoon. And it was the heaviest rain since their records began. So we can see that these weather events, let's say, are happening regularly. Every week something happens. And it's just almost becoming a normal news for everybody, because it's always pretty much forgotten just a few days after these events happen, unless it's happening to you, of course. So then, yes, let's be aware of these things happening. So, dear listeners, the show is called Spiritual Discussion Program. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message, by Uprushin. And every week we have a topic for discussion, a new topic. The topic for tonight is the self, I. So it's the self and referring to I, you can say. And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Uprushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrusheen. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other. Only then, from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for our discussion tonight is the self, I. So, Gregory, as you know, I always like to look up the meaning of the words in that topic in the dictionary. And so what we find for the meaning of the word self, it says person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. I'm just trying to work that out, what that means. They give us an example of that. They say our alienation from our true selves. They give another one, guilt can be turned against the self. And the third one is language is an aspect of a person's sense of self. So let me just repeat the definition again, Gregory, for the meaning of the word self. Person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflexive action. So it's very specific meaning given there. How good is that meaning, Gregory, for our discussion?
Well, thanks. I cannot claim to understand all that have been mapped out in the dictionary. But very simply, one can say that the self is the personality that is capable of awareness, that is capable of recognition.
Thank you for that. I'll repeat that. Self is the personality capable of awareness and recognition. So, okay. We're talking about human beings again, listeners, just in case people are wondering if we're referring to other things. We always, basically every show, the human being is the main topic. So the self is referring to us human beings here. Okay. And then there's another word, excuse me, sorry for that, in the topic tonight. So the topic again is the self and then colon I. So the word I, and I looked that also up in the dictionary, and there it says, a speaker or writer uses I to refer to himself or herself. I is a first person singular pronoun. And this example they gave is, Jim and I are getting married. So I, just to repeat that, Gregory, that's I refers to himself, the speaker or writer using I to refer to himself or herself. Again, Gregory, how good is that definition for our discussion for tonight?
That is very reflexive and it's appropriate.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, I think with this topic tonight, we could easily make 100 questions because really people must be, I am assuming, and I hope I'm right, assuming correctly, the question comes to every person, who am I? And of course, the simple answer is human being. But I think even that, you wonder, what is the human being? Is it the body? Is it the mind? Is it the, well, some people may not be familiar with these words, spirit and soul. I just say that because maybe they think this is something, let's say, in people's fantasy ideas, since they're more used to seeing the physical human in the body and the mind. So the big question becomes, I will go into the more questions, but just something else is coming in my mind right now, because you might wonder, oh, what is actually the I, or where is the I, or, when you say, who am I? Like I said, the body, is it the mind? But it could also, you might wonder, oh, where is it, So with this sort of questions, Gregory, let's think first. Gregory, let's define what is a human being. Is it the body? We say the self, So what is this self? And is it the body or is it something else?
What manifests or what one uses to experience here on earth is the physical body. So this body, which is of matter, is the covering. But that which uses the body to experience, that is not of matter. That is capable of awareness or capable of cognitions and recognitions. That which has come to use the physical body, which is of matter, did not originate from matter. It originated from its origin, that origin which is of spirit. However, for the personality to be able to experience, it needs to take on a covering which is of matter or gross matter, the final covering, in order to experience. So when a human personality is discussed or concerned, the inner core is of spirit, And subsequently, in order to make itself perceptible, in order to make itself so that it can interact in the world of matter, it needs the tool, that tool which is the body. So there is the spirit whose covering or whose immediate covering is the soul, and then we have the physical body. So it's the physical body which many are able to perceive and interact with.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. What I have understood from what you said, there are two things here: the spirit and the body. And the body we know is made of matter, let's say physical matter or gross matter, but the spirit, which uses the body to experience, as you say, doesn't come from matter. It's not a material, and is let's say has a different origin. Maybe we can use the word spiritual origin, but it's not from the physical, from matter. And it is the spirit that wants to experience, that is wanting to have the experiences, and it needs this body to have experiences. And I think is there anything more you'd like to say to my little summary there, Gregory?
There is always a build-up, a gradual step-by-step, rather than, revealing everything. Each person needs to assimilate in bits, in tokens. Then gradually they will see the whole picture. That's why one stops after a short while.
Thank you for that, Gregory, because yes, there's a lot to, let's say, discover in this, what is the self, the I, the human being is another way to put it. And let's say the general understanding of, let's say, human beings is, let's say, it's focused on a particular way, a limited way, you can almost say. And there's more to it than that limited understanding. So I do understand when we talk about these things beyond that understanding, it takes time to understand, take that in. So thank you for making that point. Now, so we said there's a spirit and there's the body, and the spirit is experiencing through the body. So now there's also, Gregory, the mind and the brain. And let's say from our scientific or understanding, it seems that everything is being controlled by the brain, or even through the spine. And we function on a conscious and a subconscious level. So the brain is, certain things of the body, we know, digestion and so on, we don't have to think about it. It works subconsciously. The body's somehow got the programming there to do that work. And then there's other things where we make decisions, which I think we'd say is a conscious thing. So that's a different level. So let's explore that one, Gregory. So the mind and the brain. What can we say? What is what is the mind and the brain? What is, or let's say, their functions? Or let me say, how does that fit in with what we have said about spirit and body? What is, yeah.
Basically, you find that the brain is of matter, but it's more or less a ramified workshop. So the brain is able to sort of regulate some activities of the body, and we know that from the brain, we're able to think. From the brain, we have our thoughts. And that is where, most of the time, the thoughts are generated. But beyond one's thoughts, there are one's intuition. Sometimes a combination of one's intuitions, which are expressions or communications between the spirit and the human body, which communication goes through the back brain or through the solar plexus and then to the back brain and then to the front brain. In that process, it's able to have an influence, an impact on our thoughts. Sometimes you have what is referred to as the mind, is basically the seat where some parts of one's intuition interacts or have an impact on our thoughts. So people see, if I follow my mind, basically they are referring to their thoughts, which is sprinkled with one's intuitions. Therein you have the mind. Hello, you are on mute.
Apologies, listeners. I was on mute, as Gregory pointed out. So, Gregory, I was saying that what you've just said, it just shows that this topic is very extensive, and we are just gradually sort of going into, let's say, aspects of it as we speak, as we continue our discussion. So now you've brought in the intuition there, and well, you were talking about the mode of communication, how we communicate. So there's that mode there, which we are aware of, the mind, the brain, which is having thoughts and so on. And then there's the intuition also. So another aspect which we are, let's say, coming to understand or see. So we're going to put all this together as we go further. I'm thinking, so Gregory, I'm just having these other, let's say, concepts or terms that we come across whenever we talk about the self or the human being. And then this concept I'm coming across is the soul. So we've talked about the spirit, Gregory. We talked about the body, the mind, and the brain. And then there's also some people call it the soul. So could you say, Gregory, the soul is the same as the spirit? Or is it something else?
The soul is not the same as the spirit. The spirit, in its different clothing, is called the soul. So one is not expecting the spirit to be in quotes, naked, before the human personality incarnated, it already existed. In that case, the form of its existence, the identifiable form of its existence, of its presence, is the soul. When it then incarnates in a physical body, a body which it takes over at the middle of pregnancy, and then is born maybe 4.5 months later, it becomes a human personality in flesh and blood. So you talk of a human being. After departure, after death, that means it has now shed the physical body, which now returns to its origin. That means the physical body will disintegrate. The soul which took over the physical body still exists. The soul is now permitted to journey forward, to experience in accordance to how he himself or herself has woven its thread. So it is the threads which the personality has spun. These threads have been spun gross materially. All these threads have been spun in deeds. They have been spun in their thoughts. And above all, they have been formed in the person's intuitions. So these are three different weavings. As we all know, our thoughts, most of the time, does not resonate with our deeds. When we wish to deceive others, we will be doing something, giving them the impression we are serious, whereas our thoughts is almost on the opposite direction. That already shows that our thoughts and our deeds are different. If they resonate, it means they harmonize. That means you say what you mean and you mean what you say. But that is scarcely the scenario with human personalities. So here, basically, the threads which have been spun by our physical activities, by our deeds, those threads keep rolling on. The threads which have been spun by our thoughts, those threads keep rolling on. The threads which have been spun through our intuition, those threads are different and keep rolling on. So, the human personality that has now left the physical body is now subjected to the motion in creation, where as it has laid in or as it has sewn these threads, as it has woven these threads, so it will now experience them. If these threads have been woven in harmony to bring benefits not only to itself but also to others, then he himself or herself will have to experience the effects of these activities. If, however, the threads have been woven for destruction and confusion, then he himself or herself will also have to experience this and have a taste, in fact, a full taste of it, so as to understand what he himself or herself has put into nature, into creation. So that is how it goes.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this detailed picture that you've just painted. You know, I was thinking, let's say people think, oh, yes, I'm born and then I die. And which is, of course, their earth life they're looking at. But they're probably unaware that they existed already before they were born on the earth, and they continue to exist after they die on the earth. So they're already existing before and after. And this is the body they are looking at when they're thinking about the earth life. And yet we have mentioned that there is a spirit, which is the one that is, how can I say, using the body as a covering to experience on the earth. So that spirit, which you've talked about, personality, also we can say, it already exists before that, before it is birth on the earth. So that's something to be, let's say, aware of. We may not be aware of it directly on the earth, that's how it is, life is. But if you don't have this picture, then you know, you can't really, let's say, look at this, do things, you know, how we are meant to be. So this is something you can say we have to come to realize that or discover that. So there's a spirit that is actually active. And yes, you mentioned already, Gregory, that we have the intuition, we have the thoughts, and we are doing the deeds, you know. So they are interacting with each other. And as you say, we can mask our true wishes with doing something different and in physical deed than what our real wishes are. So we can mask it, and people may not realize that. So, or we can act exactly as we wish, you know, and then people will see that as well. So there's something there to be aware of in this, you know, picture. Now, before we continue, I just want to let the listeners know this is Blessed Radio, and this is a spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is the self, I, the self, I. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on blessradio1, that's the number one, .com/home, HOME. We're also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space, live stream. That's for the live show, which is on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And you can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, the number one again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the self, I. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one. Before I continue, I've received some messages from a listener, and you could say it's their comments they're sending, not really questions. And they've sent a number of comments, so I'll just read them out. Is the I that I'm today the same I of yesterday? If so, of which are we speaking? Oh, this looks like a question, but it looked like to me a point. But let me continue. If so, which are we speaking? The I that is the public face, the I of the true self, as in the real I of the spirit. I think these are question and comment at the same time, but I'm just trying to, when I'm going through it, I'm realizing that. The I of the emotional self, mental or physical self, when they are all harmonized, as in the swinging, as in swinging consciously in the light, is this then the height of a human being's development, or is there more that we have yet to become? On the other side, what are the contraindications, and what must one do to bring about a harmonious relationship between all the levels of a united whole? So I think, Gregory, this is really, I would say, a question, but it's sort of a question that seems to, how can I say, develop itself. So I'm going to just go slowly, and I think I'm going to just do step-by-step question with you, Gregory, because otherwise we will really won't know where we are going. So let me start this, I'll call it point one. Is the I that I am today the same I of yesterday? And let me read point two, because I think that's connected to the point one. So, if so, of which are we speaking?
Sorry, you said
Yes.
one step at one time.
Yes. Okay, Gregory, you
jump
go.
into
You go.
point
Okay,
2 and point
one
3.
second. Yes. Let me say. Okay, I'll just read number point one, and then you can say, is the I that I'm today the same I of yesterday?
The I, the inner personality of yesterday, the experiences it has gathered, will have either elevated its state of maturity or decreases its state of maturity due to the experiences, due to its intuitions, due to its thoughts, due to its physical activities. Therefore, your question means, does the state remains the same? which answer becomes very simple. It depends on how that human being has experienced. If between yesterday and today it has suddenly found out many things and has come to some further recognition and has taken those recognitions to heart, then it has matured. It has matured more spiritually. Its state of maturity is therefore greater than the state of maturity it had yesterday. If that is not the case, then its state of maturity has decreased. One should never forget, motion is a law in creation, which motion has effects on all that we do, in all our thinking, in all our deeds, and in all our intuitions.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer to point one. I'm going to now go to point two. If so, I'll repeat point one and then I will go to point two. So the point one was, is the I that I'm today the same I of yesterday? Now point two is, if so, of which are we speaking? The I that is the public face, or the I or true self as in real I of the spirit.
There is only one I, one self. Its state of maturity varies with its activities. Therefore, one cannot be speaking of I of the public face. It is still the same personality that has matured or has remained in the same state or has fallen below the maturity of yesterday. So things are dynamic, like is in stress. Motion is a law in creation. In motion, you may accelerate, you may move much faster, or you might remain in the same place, or you can even sink. So the question the person should be asking themselves, how do you stand? Do you remain in the same spot in your maturity? Or do you sink further? Or one may say, have you improved? Have you moved from the cognitions you now have to more recognition, in which you are very much aware of the forces in nature, how you yourself need to respond to these forces? One should never forget, in this discussion, many think of something abstract. Far, far from it. It is you, the human personality, that is referred to. So one should not start thinking, oh, some creature somewhere. No. It is the I. It is you. It is me we are referring to. How do we stand now? How did we stand yesterday? Of course, in our emotions. By emotions, which many refer to as energy motion. One would dwell on that a bit. Spirit, or to reverse it, energy is spirit. One will repeat it, energy is spirit. But spirit has different categories As many have now known through the so-called science, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That is a fact in science. No one argues about that. That being a fact means if energy cannot be created, it means it's already existed. If energy cannot be destroyed, it means it will continue to exist. So, before birth or after death, that energy, that category of energy is of spirit. That category which has the capability of awareness, the capability of self-awareness, the capability of cognitions, the capability of recognitions. That energy is spirit. That is what we are referring to, and that is the I. So, how does it mature? The maturity of the spirit depends on how it has woven its threads. Which threads are of the deeds, the threads woven with our thoughts, and the threads woven with our intuitions. These are three different categories of weaving. And when one considers that motion is a law in creation, many should ask themselves, for all that we observe, our thoughts are in motion, our intuition are in motion, our deeds are in motion. Now you ask yourself, all that you perceive, they are in motion. Even when one considers they look stationary, they are in motion because they contain elements of atoms, of giant atoms. They are in motion. Even our communication is in motion. Then the question is, has anyone ever asked, where comes this power that permits of this motion? That is what every personality must never, ever ignore. For their inner core, which is of spirit, is also in motion. So that power that permits, that power that supplies the ingredients for motion must be thought of. That power, one cannot say it's intelligent, but one may talk about a wisdom that permitted its power to human creatures to mature. And from that high point, things become very clear instead of the confusion which has reigned. As again has been discussed, motion being a law in creation, there is only two types of motion, not many, just two types. The first type is that motion in which the end of the motion flows back to the beginning. That is what we refer to as vibration. In that particular instance, or in that scenario, time is already defined in that very clearly. One may also hold on to that where the end flows back to the beginning, that is more of a reciprocal activity. So one of the possible characteristics, or one of the characteristics, is that of reciprocal activity. And many have now called it karma, call all sorts of names. You see material, what you reap you will sow. You see material, that is a reciprocal activity. Another characteristic that pictorially one may have in forming the concept is that of an attraction, a crowding together. And that is why the end flows back to the beginning. That attraction, if one is to give it a proper picture, a proper connecting picture, a proper structure, one will now refer to it as the attraction of homogeneity, or the attraction of homogeneous species. That is very clear because things are in motion and cannot be otherwise. So, from the motion, which is a law in creation, we now have two structures. These two structures are parts of the divine will which rules in nature, in creation. The other part, which is that in which the end of the motion does not flow back to the beginning, that, when examined carefully, gives the impression in which that which is heavier is sinking. That is why I couldn't go back to the beginning. And that which is lighter stays on top. But that is left as personal examination homework for every listener. For from that has sprung the so-called law of gravitation or spiritual gravitation. Therefore, you find that the laws which govern creation, which govern nature, these laws are parts of the laws of creation, are only manifestations of the divine will, which divine will help in the maintenance of nature, of creation, and all that belongs there. Before creation even came into existence, this wisdom was always there. Of the wisdom that permitted creation to be, many who are discerning may refer to the work in the light of truth, the Grail message, to examine it rigorously. There, prayerfully, they will find.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for what you've just said there. I know you're referring to the laws of creation and nature there, which are like a fundamental foundation or cornerstone to having an understanding of, let's say, how this world works. So it's essential that people become aware of that. So there's a structure and there's a mechanism, and all of this works within these natural laws or laws of creation. So this is the knowledge that is in the Grail message that we are, let's say, making you aware of. Gregory, I just want to return back to the question or points that the listener who wrote out the quite a few points I made. So I just want to come back to that. They were talking about the I, the self, and they mentioned obviously there's the spirit, and then they were talking about I, the public face, and you mentioned clearly that there's only just the one I. But let me continue with their points because, and then you can just, how can I say, correct it or add to it. So the point number 3, they said the I of the emotional self, and mental or physical self. So, just let me just read the whole thing, and then we'll just go step by step, like I said. So they started with, is the I that I am today the same the I of yesterday? That was how they started. Then they said, if so, of which are we speaking? The I that is the public face, the I of the true self, as in the real I of the spirit. Then they say, the I of the emotional self, the I, the mental or physical self, and they just and they say when all of these are when all of them are harmonized, as in swinging consciously in the light, is this then the height of a human being's development, or is there more that we have yet to become? So can you comment on that, Gregory, or say something about that?
Very simply, there is only one I that manifests in its interactions through the thoughts or through the deeds. There is the reference to emotions, those emotions which have sprung from the spirit. So those emotions had already been touched on, that the intuitions have an impact on our thoughts, or may have an impact on our thoughts, just as our thoughts may have an impact on our deeds, which deeds are perceptible only through the 5 senses that we have. So in that case, you will find that there is a connection or a disconnection when we are able to mature to that state in which our intuitions resonate with our thoughts, or when our thoughts resonate with our intuitions, and when our deeds, gross materially, resonate with our thoughts, then the individual is capable of achieving a lot. However, is still in motion. You still need to experience many things, not just over a small area. You still need to keep on experiencing, because there is continuity in life. You won't say, oh, I have learned enough, and when you compare yourself to composing music, oh, I've composed enough, that's more than enough, I can't do more than, no. There is continuous improvement. What we knew 10 years ago is little in comparison with what we know today. What we knew 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So all you need to do is look at the human personality, how they make progress. Not too long ago, about 20 years ago, everything was Nokia phone. Today, You speak and you can see the picture of the other person. Many things can be done. You can watch movies, even from your phone. Is that not experiencing? Or do you wish to go back to those days where you had a small phone to communicate with? The same thing with transportation. The same thing with music. There is the room for continuous improvement in maturity. But there is a threshold in which the human personality must have to be able to return consciously as a self-conscious self. That's the I. Conscious human spirit in order to be able to enter its origin, the paradise of man. Consider very carefully. Many a time, many people are quite emotional when they talk about their hometown, which is quite understandable because there is an inner sensing of belonging somewhere. And that inner sensing, which has sprung up from our thoughts, which has sprung up from our bodies, because the bodies which we use is connected to the solar radiation around the area where we incarnated and were born. So there is that sensing which sometimes leads to nostalgia. But that is for the physical body. Just as you have that sensing for the physical body, for that which is gross material, because it's of matter, so also the inner part of man, which is of spirit, that left its home as an unconscious spirit germ, has that inner draw to return home, to complete that cycle in maturing, in becoming aware, becoming self-aware, in all the recognitions that it builds up, in learning to adjust. There is that inner sensing which draws the human personality homewards. Homewards, not here in gross matter, but homewards in the home of the spirit, the paradise of man. That is what many of the religions keep referring to, and are able to speak of it only very little. For those gifts, those talents which have been buried in man, which man needs to cultivate, those talents which need to be unearthed through activities, through vigorous activities. These talents one may refer to as the virtues. Only when one has awakened these virtues, when one has awakened these talents and is able to use them, is one matured enough to be able to go back home as a self-conscious human personality that rejoices in the deeds of others, just as others rejoice in his own deed, and is able to exist eternally. should the person not make enough efforts to cultivate these talents which have been sown in it, then it risks the possibility that it will still be drawn back home. But because of the way it has grown, is unable to use the distorted skills, the distorted talents back home in paradise, and therefore will go back as an unconscious spirit gem because it hasn't developed these talents which were sown in it. Therefore, you can now imagine a sower went forth to sow. Some of the seeds fell on fertile soil and they produced so much. Some of the seeds fell on hard soil, fell in different places. And in that case, they themselves were unable to develop their talents. Each personality has been granted that opportunity to develop its talents, to develop the virtues. However, what counts is how many have done this. If they have done it in accordance with the wisdom that has placed this talent in there, then they will awaken back home as self-conscious human personality. To awaken means to come to maturity, to come to the awareness. They are awakened to the light. Doesn't mean that they are the light. Just as a human personality who awakes here on earth to the daylight does not become the daylight. But the joys that permits of that human personality to mature is present, and the human personality should make use of it.
Thanks so much, Gregory, for what you've just, how can I say, explained about the journey of us human beings. What I see is there's a pattern on Earth. We have a birth, we have a death, and we live, our life on the Earth. That's the physical life, you can say, but that's a pattern, or you could say, of another, you could say, long, how can I put it, say, of our spirit. It says mirror, let me say a mirror of our journey as a human spirit. So we have a life on the Earth, and actually the real life as a spirit, we started, let's say, from our origin in paradise, and the aim is to, as you say, you return back to your home. So the aim is to go back to as a spirit, to your spiritual home, which is paradise, as it is said in many religions, as you said. So, and these, on the Earth, the spirit is living in this body, the physical body, or gross material body. So we're having experiences on the Earth, and yet there is a great, you could say, greater journey that we are doing, which we may not be conscious of it, but that's really our real goal, is to, where we started our origin as a unconscious spirit, like you say, spirit germ, and then we return there as a self-conscious spirit that's the journey of the spirit. And the earth is like a little mirror image of that, a small reflection of that big journey that we're doing. So you can see that this is a very big understanding that we must have if we really want to know what is our purpose and what this world actually is, and how it all works. So hopefully, listeners, you will you'll get to know that through your own seeking and searching. Now, I just want to, before I continue, just let the listeners know this. You're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is the self, I. The self, I. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com/home. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of tonight's show, which is the self, I. And of course, you can listen to the recordings of our previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Gregory, this is really, how can I say, a massive topic, I think we have made it clear. I hope listeners, we made it clear. So we're talking about the self, the I, and this self, the I, is the spirit, our personality, which is at the moment we are living on the earth. So we have our physical body, but the body is not the I. The brain is not the I, which is because that is all material. The spirit is non-material. Its origin is not from the material at all. It is the one that is, you could say, the living being. That's why I call it spirit. That is experiencing, using the body on the earth. And Gregory, you've said it before in many of our shows that yes, there are 3 aspects of how we, you could say, function or be active. We have our intuition, we have our thoughts, and we have our deeds. Now, these thoughts let's start with the intuition. Intuition is working on a spiritual level. Then we have our thoughts, which you can say are working on material level. But of course, the material, you think of it as something you can see with your eyes or somehow, but with thoughts you can't see them. So it's let's call it fine matter. And then there's that's what the thoughts are working on. And then there's the deeds, which are the physical things that we can all see. So we can call them the gross matter. So there you have these three levels of activity. And as you've pointed out, excuse me, before, that we can obviously, these three activities they may align, they may not align. And obviously you can imagine the consequences of when they align will be very different when they do not align. In other words, if you're deceiving or you're doing it genuinely something. So this is something we won't go into further, but that's how it is. That's working in that way. Now, Gregory, sometimes people say, oh, a part of me feels this way, a part of me feels another way. And, you're wondering, what is this part? Is it the spirit, the I, we said, or is it the thoughts somehow, which seems to be, or is it something in the body, or some other things coming from the body? Because a part of me feels this way, a part of me feels that way. So, in a way, Greg, I want to ask, do we have one voice or personality, or is there some other aspect that makes it conflicting? Sometimes you get conflicting. So what is it going on here?
One should always ask oneself, where you have that there are others. We are not alone. Even in a house or in a crowd, there are other people, all right, with their phones. And as long as we have tools to perceive, we can hear what others are saying, what they are doing, and that becomes a noise. Problem is that when in our experiencing with our thoughts, we get too involved with, in quotes, gossips. When we get too involved with those things which are so close to us, then it becomes a conflict. Because a flash of intuition is a picture without words. On the other hand, there are distortions filled with words. And it becomes very difficult for one to decide. That which produces a flash without words is that which is intuitive. That should be the touchstone. How should man resolve it? Only through practice, only through silent observations. But many will have to make errors, which errors are harmful, and through pain learn to become calm, look inwards before they can move forward. For in the cases where they themselves are permitted through advice, this advice is ignored. They still prefer noise to genuine silence. Even when they have read in their scriptures and there was a heavy wind, and the Lord was not in the wind, there was a heavy storm, and it wasn't there. But in the silence that came, that should expose everything to many. But no, people have their wishes and they want things to happen in their own very way, which basically means they wish to weave in their own way. Whether their weaving is of benefit or not is immaterial. Just like someone, just like a drunkard who likes to keep drinking, like a fish until he or she can drink no more, because that's their wish. So you have these scenarios, whereas a quiet observation clarifies many a thing, albeit in silence.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. I just start as you were answering. I was thinking of something we call the ego, and I just thought let me before I do that, let me go into what I want to say about the ego. I just thought let me look up what it says in the dictionary about ego. They're giving two meanings there, and the first meaning they say, excuse me, excuse me, sorry for that. Ego, the first meaning, a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. And they give it this, he needed, this example they give, he needed a boost to his ego. So this is one meaning. And then they said another meaning, the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for the reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Compare with, no, I won't say that one. So there are two meanings there. The person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, or the part of the mind that mediates between conscious and unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. So I think the ego that I want to actually, I want to discuss about both the meanings, actually, Gregory. So, Gregory, I said a part of me thinks one way, a part of me thinks another way. And then this is the battle or conflict that we get sometime, that there's, let's say, the ego, if I can call it ego, that one wants to be important or wants some respect. I don't know exactly what it is. And some sort of pride, as we call it. And then you act, I'm important, so this is the way it has to be, so let me ask so is there a battle there, Gregory, that sort of battle going on, let's say, so we know there's just the one I, the personality. So can I ask, what is the ego? Let me ask like that first, Gregory.
One must consider a scenario. The scenario in which, in one's weaving, using one's intuition in the past, using one's thoughts in the past, or one's deeds in the past, those deeds, those thoughts, and those intuitions, they're not nothing. They are something. They are threads. They are threads that have developed from the motion in creation. And it becomes clear that these threads, some of these threads, will return to their origin. That is the personality that's initiated these threads. There are some that in their density are unable to return to their origin, so they sink further. If they were lighter, they help to drag the person upwards. These form the environment of the individual. These help to form the environment, the gross material environment, the source environment in which the person is now in, and also the intuitive environment in which this person is involved. When you then consider this, and that this same personality is in this potpourri of what it has woven in the immediate past or the far past, and it needs to be involved more, it needs to weave more. So there becomes a battle, depending on its maturity. They sometimes think, oh, maybe what I did in the past is better than what I'm doing now. Or if in the past it has been able to achieve a lot, and it has that sensing, then it becomes arrogant and say, oh, that means its ego, that means that which it has achieved in the past is unable to put it aside. That is where ego comes in, because it now finds it very difficult to experience. Consider someone, say, in this earth life, in which at a young age it was able to accomplish so much, and subsequently, in the returns of the past earth lives, it has been brought down. All that it has made, it has now lost. Now, what sort of ego how would you classify or categorize such a personality that had everything in the immediate past and now has lost everything? Unless he or she is humble enough, if we want to keep pride in itself, I was able to do this, I was able to do that, even at a young age. So many now say, now the ego comes in. The same thing happens for some who, in their past earth lives, were kings and queens. They compose wonderful music, and they have a sensing of their former achievement. What do you think happens to such people if they are not humble? They will hold it in their sight and would not wish to do anything. They still want to become kings. They still want to become queens. So that many are unable to remember what they were in their past earth lives is more of a blessing. For the human personality has experience in the past, and there's continuity. Maybe that person in the past had been a wonderful pianist, a wonderful painter, could have been a doctor and has achieved so much. But now in this earth life, in its experiencing, all that remains for it is in humility to be able to serve others, not through medicine, not through music, not through painting, like you have in the arts and the sciences, but through guiding others in service. That guidance in service, to be able to instruct people There are some who have incarnated, who are very matured human personalities, but have incarnated to be able to advise many a person who is a king or a queen, and they now come in as servants. In their humility, they want to be able to guide, to advise. Yet, those who consider themselves wiser because they are the kings, they are the kings of industry, look down on these very matured human personalities who only speak in whispers and in silence, showing loyalty, which loyalty many are unable to give. So the scenario of the ego you mentioned has sprung from all these sort of accumulations which is discussed, because the human personality has now developed a characteristic, which characteristics now prevent it from experiencing genuinely. So, but there are many different scenarios of this. Again and again, one is compelled to ask many a listener to examine the work. For all that is discussed, the framework or the basis is this same work.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your detailed answer there. There's more I would like to go into, but before I do that, I want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Blessed Radio. And this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you, to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is the self, I. The self, I. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com/home. Excuse me for that. And you can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is the self, I. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Plus Radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, we're talking about the self, the I, which we have determined is the spirit. You know, we looked at the ego as well. You could say the egos. As I said, we have battled with the ego sometime and the spirit. But you very, very carefully, how can I say, not carefully, you made a point of that, you know, if we are calm and, you know, let us thoughts, you could say, settle and in peace, then things lesser become clear for us. If we are, let's say, occupied by our, you could say, stresses and thoughts and so on and on and on, then yes, you can fully understand there can be confusion coming in our minds and our, you know, process of thinking or whatever you want, you know, where we want to go. Now, you know, and it's a fundamental question we ask: who are we? You know, or what is our purpose and where are we going? And very big questions. So, I mean, already we have clarified that we are not the body. We just occupy this body to experience on the earth. And yet we are actually the spirit which originates outside of this world of matter, and it has its own journey that it takes. So my question then now, Gregory, I wonder now, is that what is our real purpose there, Gregory? I can see the journey there. Is it to seek knowledge? And, you know, because everything we are discovering, isn't it? You know, we use science also for earthly, you could say, for earthly benefit. It doesn't help us with the spiritual understanding, but it does help us in living on the earth. So if there's something there we seem to want to discover. So is it, Gregory, our purpose to seek knowledge?
Although the question sounds strange, the answer, which had been given many times before, even during this discussion, it should be considered within the framework of the laws of creation, particularly with respect to that particular law of reciprocal activity and the attraction of homogeneous species, which also form the cornerstone of all motion and all movement. In that reciprocal activity, in which the end returns to the beginning, we have that at the beginning, there is the human spirit gem born like a newborn baby here on earth. A newborn baby here on earth is only conscious to a large extent of the nearest surrounding. It does not know how to make use of the tools which has been granted to it yet. Over the next few months and the next few years, it listens. It learns the language. Which language is that of its nearest parents, of the society, through the tools which it has, the five senses. The state at which it started from and the gradual development in making use of these tools, that is progress, not retrogression. And making use of these tools, it matures. Before long, of course, it has been breathing in and breathing out. It learns, or it becomes certainty, that the right to receive is conditional on the right to have given. In that case, it keeps maturing. It keeps maturing until it gets to adulthood, where now is having developed some of the features, which of the features is also the language it needs to use to communicate. It uses this in its own maturity. Of course, there are different languages in different parts of the globe, but all these are used for its maturity. Until it gets to a point of old age where the gross material physical body, which is made of matter, starts disintegrating step by step. Before long, or before too long, the spirit then departs from the body. So what has it come to do? It has come to experience, to mature, to become more aware than it was initially. Therefore, the purpose of the human personality in creation, first and foremost, to become conscious of its surroundings, to become subsequently self-conscious. That means it is the spirit that has now become aware of the language in which creation speaks to it. That language which it needs to understand and adapt to. That language is basically the language of the laws of creation, which language helps it to awaken. To awaken and to be able to perceive of radiations, to be able to perceive of objects, to move from that place of cognition, because they are cognitive objects, to a place of recognition. To recognize, one should know what it means. That means something must have opened up within to say, this is the real meaning of this. That is recognition. And having come to recognition and knowing to use the virtues in accordance with these laws of motion, which laws of motion are a manifestation of the laws of creation, or to put it more briefly and precisely, a manifestation of the divine laws in creation. The human personality that started as an unconscious spirit germ now matures and opens up and is able to interact. It now understands what lies behind these happenings. and is able to adjust itself. It has awakened. It is now conscious. It is now self-conscious. That means the spirit participates in the maturity. When it started as an unconscious spirit gem, it was not matured enough. So the purpose, basically, has been to be born in nature, to gradually to awaken to the streams of radiation in nature, in creation, and to use this radiation for its personal awareness, for its personal consciousness, such that it becomes self-conscious. Only then can it fit in the paradise of man as a self-conscious human personality. That it has returned home as a self-conscious human personality does not mean it goes back home and does nothing. For there are others who also undertake that same journey it has undertaken. And now, as a self-conscious human personality, it is able to advise, just as many a person who has studied and has become a teacher and understand the challenges can advise others. Just as he himself will advise others, as you will find when people say, I have my conscience, which conscience is basically a picture, a guidance of others who are more matured than he himself, quietly whisper into his or her ears or shows picture, such that the mistakes some of them had made in the past, this person going through this experience should not make the same mistake. And just as these people advise those on earth, so also those who are higher advise them. So he or she who must receive must first give. So you could see the give and take, the reciprocal activity in all this. That is all. There's no other.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer there. I really liked about this guidance through the conscience, where others are helping us, because otherwise, you can always have your own idea. You go left, you go right, or whatever experience you have, and you make something out of it. But easily, let's say, you can go astray. And then it's really good to know that there are people who are conscious, are guiding us, to keep, you could say, on the straight and narrow, if that's the way to put it, to not to get lost or confused. Now, Gregory, we also know, you mentioned earlier religions, we have teachers, messengers, you can say, of God sent to us. And we already been told about, you mentioned about reincarnation. So I'm wondering, Gregory, so one earth life is not sufficient to get you could say, the full experience, necessary experience. And so I'm wondering, all these different teachings, or religions that have been come along in the history, you can say, does it mean we have to know all of them, each one, and as part of our development to become a mature human being?
Absolutely not. But if one reflects on the essence of the so-called religion, then one will come to discover again a process of from cognition to recognition. One reflects on the essence, you will find the structure of this essence are that of the laws of nature, of creation. Basically, that is it. What human beings have made of them varies from person to person. So the kernel must remain the same. For when one reflects calmly, it cannot be otherwise that for you to be able to receive, you yourself must have put something in place that all that exists in nature, in creation, all swing unconditionally in the laws of motion, which manifest as the laws of the divine will. That is what the human spirit need to be conscious of. So, if any religion does not, one way or the other, points out this, then it is lacking in that which it needs to point out. But for many, all they need to do is to reflect silently. The process of reflecting silently is also part of motion. They must weigh. They must examine. To examine has a reference. To examine according to the laws of creation. So that which accosts us must be weighed, must be examined. Again, one can see that weighing calls for one is heavier than the other, gravitation. Examining means basically to look at the beginning, look at the end flowing back to the beginning. So to examine only provides that pictorial structure of reciprocal activity and the attraction of homogeneity. It remains the same, whether it is done in the so-called science or done in the so-called religion or done in the so-called the arts. It is basically the same thing. For it is these laws through which we as human personality incarnated or came into existence. Came into existence in order to become aware of these laws and subsequently to adjust our decisions such that these laws we will resonate with these laws and be able in our decisions, in our activities, to bring benefits first and foremost to ourselves and subsequently to others. So it becomes in observing these laws in accordance to the divine will, it becomes one for all and all for one. You don't require rocket science to understand that, do you?
Thanks very much, Gregory, for what you've said there. Dear listeners, we've come to the end of our show tonight on the topic of the self, I. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion and we've covered a lot, I will say, in this topic, very interesting topic. So, yeah, I'd like to now end with the forward from the reading from the forward of the Grail message in the light of truth by Abrushin, and it is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Aprushin. Dear listeners, if you want to get to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Now, Gregory, is there anything you would like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing every listener a very beautiful week.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a great week. And we'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another topic. And actually, I put a call out for suggestions for new topics. You're welcome to suggest some topics. You can contact me on this number, which you know for the show already. It's 079, that's a UK number, 07939641958. Again, well, you can text. It's better if you text or WhatsApp me, please. And The UK outside of UK is 0044 7939 641 958. Again, you can message me on WhatsApp or text for a new topic, suggestion for a topic for the radio show. So thanks again for being with us tonight. I wish you all a great week. God bless. Good night.